In Project 3, you'll be asked to code a program that utilizes input statements, assignment statements, output statements, and the format manipulators. So it'll put together all of the things that you're experiencing and reading about in this chapter. The problem itself is right here on this slide. A sports equipment retailer will generate a report of the monthly sales figure, including the pre-tax sales amount, the county and state tax amounts, and totals. So I want to see a pre-tax sales amount, then calculate a county tax, then calculate a state tax, then sum the tax amounts, and then sum everything. So the program must have the user enter the store location, so that should be a city name, and you should assume that the city name could possibly have a space in it. Then the user should be asked to enter the pre-tax sales for 1 month. The program will then calculate and display a 4% state tax, a 2% county tax, the total state and county tax, and then the total dollar amount. So this would be the pre-tax sales and all the taxes included, right? So sum everything together. So I have some sample input and output for you. On this slide, you'll see sample input. So here is a statement that prompts the user, enter the store location, and then here is the user input, North Space Tonawanda. So you should assume that you're not just going to get a town like Sanborn that is a single word, no space. You're going to need to read it as a string. Enter total sales before tax. That would be the next prompt for the user. And in this case, I'm just using a random number, but you should test with your own data. So in this case, I have $25,068.76. Be sure your prompts to the user are clear and free of typos, so double check everything. And then make sure you're using the appropriate data types for your input. You're going to need to store the values that the user enters into variables. Use a constant where appropriate. So remember, a constant stays constant throughout the run of your program. So in the case of working with taxes, it's kind of obvious there where I'm going with that. Test data. So you'll see in my sample output that I tested with a city name with a space, but you should test with city names that have a space, don't have a space. Make sure everything's working correctly. Then you should test with my data, so you can compare the output if you'd like. But also I would test with other data. I would put in, $10,000 and make sure your 4% and your 2% are correct. Okay, so here's my sample output based on the data that I entered earlier, right? So I want the output to show the location, :space, and then display the city. Then you have a dotted line, just some dots to separate from the report. And then in the report, notice what's going on here. You have each of the items, sales before tax, the county tax amount, the state tax amount, total sales tax, which is the sum of these two values here. And then the total collected is the sum of the pre-tax amount plus county tax plus state tax, right? So these three added together. The other thing you'll notice about this is the dollar signs are aligned. You'll notice that the decimal places are aligned. I want you to use format manipulators for this purpose. So that would be your set width, your right and left justification. Use set precision where you need to. All of the manipulators that you read about and learned about in this chapter. Okay. Make sure you place comments at the top of your source code with your name and a brief program description, but I also want to see comments throughout your program. It tells me that you understand what your program is doing, and you're not just getting your answers from somewhere else, that you've given it some thought. Keep your variable and constant declarations together at the top of your code. Do not declare your variables in a calculation. So I saw a lot of that, and I'm wondering if some of that is coming from how Replit is giving you hints. It can cause errors depending on where the statements occur, so I'll show you an example of what I mean. I suggested in your previous project, oh, my numbers are wrong here, in your previous project that you keep the flow and the sequence of your code the same. Generally, they follow this sequence. The first thing you'll do is declare your variables. Then you'll get data, right? This is where you prompt your user and get input. Then once you have your data, this should be number 3 here, but then you can perform your calculations. Once you've performed your calculations, then you can, number 4, you can display. And again, this is generally the sequence that the programs we write follow. I'd like to take you through a sample in your book. Let me just flip back over. Okay, it's not letting me flip. I have to pause this. Okay, take a look at this example here, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. This is section 3.1, the CN object. I'm in the live code example here, and I wanted to draw your attention to the statements that you'll see inside of main. So take a look at line 6. The first thing they do is they declare their variables, and that's what I would consider our step 1 declare. Right, and so you can abbreviate here. Now, step 2 is to get data generally, right? And that's exactly what's happening here. It says to get the hours worked and get the hourly pay rate. Now, they're asking you to write the code to do that. So you are going to see in arrows pointing in the direction of the flow of data, and you're going to enter hours, right? So this is your variable name, and that goes there. Then the next thing is to get the pay rate. So I'll just fill these in just so you can see how this would look. So pay, uppercase R, rate. And this is your step 2. Right, so this is 2, get data. Okay, and then the third part is calculating. So I generally label that as number 3. Now that I have the data, right, I have hours, I have pay rate, I can use them in a calculation. And also notice that gross pay has been declared up here at the top, not down here on line 21. I see a lot of you doing this sort of thing, and I don't recommend that. It can get confusing as a new programmer. Just the sequence of statements becomes really important. So I just recommend just group all your declarations together. It becomes easier to debug your code and find out where your errors are and what you're missing. Then finally, lines 23 and 24 are number 4, display. Right, so there's your sequence of steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I definitely recommend writing that out for yourself and then filling the statements in that go in those places. Okay, and I just flipped back over to your project requirements, and that's about it here. So if you have any questions, do let me know.